guys, welcome to the Upshot. This is a podcast for dads trying to get it right. My name is Kyle. I'm joined by my good friend Shane, and we like to have conversations to help other fathers learn how to become better dads. I want to invite you guys to text the word Upshot to 97000. You'll join our text list to receive more updates and communication about how we are continuing to evolve the Upshot and give you more and more resources here in 2024. And now, here is today's episode. So, do you want me to introduce Jordan, or do you want to?
It's on you, buddy. You do it. Introduce our special guest.
Very
I know.
good.
It's hard to think of good things to introduce Jordan to. It takes a lot of work sometimes.
I am now offended because it seemed to roll pretty naturally for Jeremy last month. So,
Yeah, Kyle's been praying about this
Forgot
moment.
about it. Listen to that. Yeah. Yeah, we're excited to be back for another episode. Here we are, 2024.
With the best guest ever.
With one, I've been looking forward to this one for a while. Jordan doesn't know this, but we talked about having Jordan on the show for a couple of months, for a while. As soon as we found out you and Emily would be expecting, and I just texted you about that like 2 weeks ago. But it's been a fun thing. So we have I'm excited to introduce special guest today, Jordan Geist, our associate pastor.
Thanks, Shane.
Here at North Point. And, Jordan, as I mentioned, is expecting he and his wife expecting their first child in how long?
Days.
Down to the days.
Yeah, February 6th is, I don't know how quick we release these, but I mean, we're like 10 days away from the due date.
So
it'll be early.
You come across as very calm, collected, like just, I've got this, but really, how are you currently feeling about this? When you think about this idea that you might have a child in your hands in just a few moments, that is your DNA.
Yep.
What are you really feeling?
Well, Enneagram 3s have a harder time identifying what they feel than some. And so at times I just try not to think about it. I actually, it is wild. Like if it feels like I can't think about them for longer than like 30 seconds. Because I honestly, like if I do, I am like immediately overcome by emotion. Like it is just, it's a physical, like in my like gut, like right here. And if I just consider them for a little, like picture them a little too long, like in the delivery room, like I just am like, it's
Waterworks.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, it like hits fast. So yeah. I mean, I think
stop talking to you.
Yeah, keep going. I think it would be fun if we got Jordan to cry.
It would be a great episode.
It would.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like there's fear for sure. I feel like I've just accepted like you just don't know what you don't know, and you can't like prepare for this, fully. So and so like there is some anxieties, and I almost feel like more anxieties maybe for Emily and what she's about to have to go through and everything than anything. But yeah, I can't think of anything in my life, maybe wedding day was right there, but that I've been more excited for. I mean, it does feel like one of your last like planned before and after moments, if you will, or something like, there's unexpected things that hit you in life, but
you're in a threshold right now.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What was is about to be no more.
Yes.
And what's about to be isn't here yet. So, you said something that, dadgum. Well, so you're expecting a new child here in the matter of days. So I'm excited for this episode for anybody who's listening, because I don't know, there may be a small percentage of guys who are in your shoes today. But even as we prepare, like it's a pretty cool exercise to go back and remember this season of life that you're in. And I think that that's a fun thing that I'm excited for guys to experience too, because if not prompted, you easily forget the butterfly feeling and just the sheer emotion of like, this is about to just completely change our world. And that's it's pretty cool. It's special. And it definitely sheds a new light on like the season of parenting that guys will be in, much later when they reflect back. Like it's special. Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah. I feel like it's like the analogy that I could relate with today would be like, in couples counseling, a lot of times it's like, tell me about when you met or your first date or how you proposed, and just having to tell that story a lot of times creates some of the giddiness, excitement, remembering. And so, hopefully there's probably not a lot of expectant dads watching this, but dads that, already have maybe to think back on some of the dreams of that day. And,
Well, we have millions of listeners. So I'm pretty sure some of them are.
We are ranked in Canada as a top parenting.
Canada's leading parenting expert right here.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. Well, we usually start episodes talking about like sharing a dad moment. Sometimes that's a recent experience that we've had, story with our kids, or other times it's one historical. Yeah. And so I thought, fitting today if we talked a little bit, maybe something around the birthing experience. So, and then would love for you to jump in if you have a fun story to share. Then let's do it. But Shane,
let me go first.
Kick it off, man.
All right. So, my wife and I had kids when we were pretty young. And
what is that, like 17?
I think I had Jonah when I was 24, or my wife had Jonah when we were 24, but I looked like I was 15. And when Jonah was born in Round Rock, they take your child to this special nursery room, and they're all like in rows. I don't know, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so there's a glass wall where other family members can look in and see all of these beautiful babies. And so I'm going into this room, and the nurse hands me my child, and Jackie, our friend here at North Point, she was at this window looking into this room, and there was a couple right beside her, and she heard the woman beside her go, "Oh my God, is that the father?" Because she thought it was like 13 years old.
Oh no!
We need to have Josh or Jeremy overlay a picture of you, because I've seen your wedding photo when you look 12, so you probably didn't look much older.
I mean, I kid you not. She was like, she's like, that poor child's life is ruined. That poor father. And Jackie leaned in her direction, and I think she said something like, "He's at the right age. It's fine. He looks like he's 12, but he's 24.
Stuck up for you, yeah."
And she said that the couple said, "Oh, thank God."
Oh my gosh.
And that was one of very many stories and looks that I got from people wondering how old I was with a child. But that's my story.
I think there is like an element of like, you get in there, Jordan, and you start sizing up all the other families and parents.
100%.
Yeah.
It's just like anything else you do.
Yeah.
But
Comparison.
there is a definitely like a, what's that dude's story? What's
Yeah.
I remember, but nursery wise, I didn't know there was a nursery like our first round through. So here we are, like waking up all night trying to help, and like new parents don't know what we're doing. And then I meet this guy as we're leaving. I see this guy with this mom. She wheels down in her wheelchair to the nursing station and is like, "Hey, yeah, take my kid. I want to go take a nap for a couple hours."
Yeah.
And she just is like so happy, wheels right off. And we were looking at each other like, we could have done that. Like you just drop your. It's just like
with every child you
drop
have. You are like, you feel better about leaving your child in the nursery. By the time we had number 4, it's like, just bring the child in when it needs feeding, and we're just going to sleep the rest of the time in the hospital.
I hope I never say the line you just said. By the time we had number 4.
So it was, and I think this family had 3 or 4.
That's what I mean. At that point,
and at the time we were just mind blown. Like, oh my gosh, like who knew?
Yeah.
Like we just it was fun.
So what's your story, Kyle?
Yeah, mine's. I'll try to be succinct with it. But our first child, Maggie, when Maggie was born, this is kind of Jess loves telling this story. The weekend before, that year, we'd moved into a new house. We have a pool. We'd invited it was our first summer to have this home, but we were pregnant, and so we the first opportunity to have like a pool party. We had a barbecue pool party. Had a bunch of people over at our house. Well, and we're weeks out from due date. Everybody gets food poisoning from this barbecue. Like everybody's sick. And most people, it's like just a day.
Yeah.
This was on Saturday. I got sick Sunday night. I was sick for 3 days. I was out of commission. And Jess starts feeling like, I think I'm about to have this baby. And it's like 2 or 3 weeks early. So we're like, surely we're okay. I'm like, Jess, I'm not okay. Like, I don't know if I could take you. And I shoot a text to my brother, like, "Hey, you may be on standby. Like, if we need help, like, you might have to, And meanwhile, she's texting her mom, like, "He better suck it up." like dig deep, dude. Yeah. Like,
this is your child.
This is it, man. Well, sure enough, the next morning, water breaks at 4 a.m. and she's waking me up. Like, I think this is happening. So we're like, okay, what do we do? So she calls the hotline. Hey, this happened. And they're like, okay, are you having contractions? No. all right, well, she's on speakerphone. The nurse is on speakerphone, so we're both listening. She's talking, but I'm listening in. Jess then hears, hey, just take your time, wait for contractions, and then come on in whenever the process keeps going. I hear, hey, maybe like get cleaned up, prepare your stuff, get everything in order, but like make your way down here. Like let's come on down. Like it's time. So we take showers, we're packing our bags, we're like picking up the house, and so I'm like, are we ready to go? And Jess is like, well, I thought we'd go by H-E-B. So we go to H-E-B, like we're shopping for beef jerky and Sour Patch Kids.
Because we all need beef jerky in the middle of the morning when we have our kids.
I didn't have my vaccine. It was early, so I didn't have the whatever vaccine you're supposed to get. So we go to the pharmacy there. I'm like sitting there. She's wearing an adult diaper around the place because she's like still like leaking fluid, and like it's no big thing, man. And so like
I hope your wife never listens to this podcast.
Yeah, do they have to sign off and approve these?
Yeah. Well, Kyle's never going to be on this podcast
she
again.
Doesn't listen to it. This was her idea. She told me to share it. So we, it's like 11 a.m. This started at 4 a.m. And like 11 a.m., my sister-in-law texts me like, hey, because we've already told everyone like, hey, this is going to happen today. So she's a nurse practitioner. She checks in like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, well, we're still at home. Like here's everything we did today. And she's like, Kyle, call the doctor right now. And I'm like, that's not normal. Okay. So I'm like, Jess, let's just call the doctor and check in. Nothing's happening. And the nurse picks up and she's like, oh yeah, Jess, we've been waiting for you. Jess is like, yeah, well, I'm not having contractions, so I don't know. We've just been hanging out. And the nurse's response was immediately like, how far are you from the hospital right now? And we're like, about 25 minutes. And the nurse was like, I'll see you in 25 minutes. Like, she's like, get in the car. Get here now. And we both looked at each other, and I was, wasn't the time to argue, but I was like, I told you. So we get there. I'm like frazzled. I'm like, we're used to going to the doctor. It's like, it's where you're going to go, St. David's.
Yeah.
And so second floor or the third floor, I think, is where you do delivery.
Yeah.
I didn't know this because we were scheduled for a hospital tour that Saturday. We're too early, so I didn't get the tour, so I don't know what I'm doing. I head to the stairs, and she's like standing at the bottom, like staring at me, like I'm not walking up 3 flights of stairs.
Yeah.
So I ran back down. We go to the elevator. She made fun of me for that.
As she should.
And yeah, we made it in, and then after that, like obviously we had like a fantastic experience. They had to induce labor, but it was a really fun. It was like it started off super exciting, and we were so relaxed and chill, and then we had a moment of like almost crisis, and everything turned out just fine. But like beautiful experience, but it was it's just fun to be like we were clueless. Like I don't know. Like I look back and I'm like I had no idea what I was doing, and everything was fine. So and I had beef jerky and Sour Patch Kids.
That's right.
Else.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I don't know what's next on the list.
Well, we got to hear Jordan. Does Jordan have?
Oh yeah, do you have a story? I mean,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, fatherhood to this point is like it's the doctor's appointments and Emily cleaning all the time and people's unsolicited advice. Like that's been like, yeah. I mean, I think I've been able to make, all of them, but one, I was out of town for a family funeral, but all the other ones I've been able to be at, and I love those. I think I've heard from people it can be kind of common that it can be harder for a dad to feel connected throughout the process because mom is literally carrying the baby every day, and so the doctor's appointments feel so intense for me. And so whether heartbeat one or there was one, she had shown me a TikTok of this. That's how I see all TikToks is whatever she shows me, but it's like of like a baby laughing. Like if mom laughs, then the baby just vibrates like so fast. And so they found the part that very much identifies that he's a boy, and like we enjoyed that, and she laughed and he vibrated. And then once she started laughing, then she couldn't stop laughing. So and it was like a younger nurse, she was like newer, and she's like, I've never seen this before, and like we're just like all cracking up as the baby just continues to vibrate. And I'm like, so it's a bad thing if you shake them, but it's okay to like vibrate.
But they're shaking like
you're like, what? So those like I've just loved all those. I do think I was sharing with you guys before, like here at North Point, getting to be in the foyer after services each week, it's a really interesting experience as an expectant father. The kind of like 50-50 crowd of some being like, hey, sleep now, take your vacations now, have fun now, go on dates now, because your life's over. And then the amount of people that come by saying like, welcome to the club. This is the most fun thing you will ever do. I am so pumped for you, And it like is inspiring even now to want to cultivate that like sense of gratitude of how many people dream of this moment, pray to be in this moment, like, and to have however hard it's going to be, that perspective. I've really appreciated the people that make parenthood, fatherhood seem awesome, challenging, but the most rewarding thing. And that's been interesting to notice too.
That's cool. How, you mentioned like that people have been giving you unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
Like what's the worst advice you've gotten?
I want to hear this.
The worst advice?
Well, I don't know.
So actually the most like terrible thing somebody said, we were in the waiting room and there was a mom with her teenage daughter, because it's also like an OB, and stuff. So she's sitting there, she's on the phone, clearly arguing with like an ex or something like that. And she like hangs up the phone, looks at Emily, who's 37 weeks pregnant, and she's like, enjoy it now. When they grow up, it's a nightmare. And like, it took everything in me to not like, cause a scene. I knew Emily wouldn't want that, but I'm like, she's literally about to give birth. Her teenage daughter, like the poor thing, I'm like, hey, you are wonderful. Don't listen to her. Like, just like, so it's really interesting to see what comes out of people for sure. I don't know if I've had like, oh, I absolutely will not do that advice. I do think the sleep now advice is really interesting. Like, oh, if I get 8 hours of sleep right now, I'm not going to be tired when he's here. Or like, how does that work? Yeah. Like, I feel like even if I was able to hibernate, that doesn't really prepare me. Nope. So I don't know what that means exactly.
Yeah, I think it means enjoy the activity of sleeping for 8 hours.
Yeah.
You're not going to enjoy it for a while.
Yeah. So I think that's unique for sure. I had a guy tell me last week, which I agree with. He just walked by, stopped, and said, "You are not prepared." I was like, I agree with you. Like, I don't know. Yep. He's like, "You're just not prepared."
Did he just leave it at that?
That's all he said.
That's great.
I like that guy.
Cool. I might put that in the pocket. Like, that's just a great line to
You're
get
not
to everybody.
prepared.
Yeah.
You're not prepared.
And it's so true all the time. You don't know anything about the like that would be a fun thing. Like next time you're at the doctor's office and you're looking at the guy who looks like it's his first time, and you could just tell everyone in there.
Just whisper to him.
Yeah, or have these little cards you could just drop it.
Yeah,
like
that's funny.
Just kind of terrorize people.
I like it.
That's good. Well, Jordan, as you try to prepare, what are the questions or concerns or thoughts that you have that, or do you have any questions, concerns about this whole experience that you want to throw out there?
Yeah, since you're surrounded by professionals now.
Shane has been through it. He's a seasoned pro.
Yeah,
so.
I'll lean in what Kyle says most, but I'm kidding. That's the hard part about making fun of you is like you have 6 amazing children, so I actually have to listen to what you say. It's a bummer.
You just don't know my kids as well as I do.
Yeah, well, I knew this part was coming, so I wrote a couple, or I have 4 actually, so I don't know what time we have. But okay, so this one, I have been on the other side of like men I really respect, a couple of the mentors in my life even, that would like describe their greatest regret as missing these early years. And then even last week for like Story 512, we got to interview a guy, sold a company for $13 billion last year, which is a number I can't comprehend. We asked him at the end, what inspires you most today? He's on the other side of that now, starting something new. And immediately he said family. And then he got emotional and he said, I have one regret in my career. None of the other ones are regrets. They're just learnings, experiences. But my one regret is I missed my kids being kids. And so I just hear that, and I believe like I'm susceptible to that. I don't think I'm unique. I don't think anybody goes in intending to miss those years.
Yeah.
So that's a long preface, but the question is, what do you guys think it means to not miss it? How do you even define that? How do you know you didn't miss it? Didn't miss these early years?
Well, if
I have an answer, but go.
Yeah. Okay. I think if you listen to this podcast long enough, I say this thing over and over again, is I would ask myself the question later on in life, was I present for my children?
Mm-hmm.
Like, was I present in the moments? And I don't think, I mean like the big moments, I mean every single moment. When I walk in the door from being at work or from wherever I am, the moment I'm with that child has one thing, my physical presence. But does that child have my mental, emotional, spiritual, all of me in that moment, from moment to moment? And I think, my oldest son right now is 21. And it does seem like yesterday that he was this small child sitting in that nursery where that couple said, oh my God, is he the father? He's 21 years old today. Feels like just yesterday. But looking back, my wife and I have spent some time with an occupational therapist as we try to understand what it's like being my daughter, who we adopted when she was 2. Mm-hmm. And I hear over and over and over again about how much development happens in those first 2 years and the impact and influence we have as parents just through our touch and our presence. And I think even just, are we anxious when we're with them? Are we distracted when we're with them? Because sometimes I feel like we as fathers think, I'm physically present, but that isn't enough. So I wower think the answer to that question is, how do I know if I missed it or not? It's like, how do you answer the question, was I present? Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's how I would answer that question.
Yep. That's great.
Yeah, I'm in an interesting season right now, like leaving a career and then the last 6 months, asking the question, what do I want to do when I grow up and all that fun stuff. But something that I think about and I challenge myself in is like, do I regret my decision or decision making in the last 6 months? So it's a little different, but like, and I keep coming back to like, there's like a career, professional, financial decision, like components to that decision. And then there's like the family, father, husband part of that decision. And as long as I can look in the mirror and be like, dude, like, do you regret the time you have with your kids and your family? Like, take the bank account away, take all the other stuff away. Like, are you making the most of this time that you have with your family? Like, no regrets. So, whereas before, like, so this is definitely within the context of like work, but like the stress, like, so even without having a plan, like a full plan and money coming in the door, all this other stuff, like zero regret around like the time and the connection and the presence that I'm able to share with my kids and our family right now, the experiences that we're able to create and memories creating together, versus like when I'm working and maybe things feel more stable at home. It's like I'm anxious, I'm not present, I was distracted, I'm not as confident, because you're all these other things. And so for me, like how am I measuring that I'm not missing it? It's like there's like I'm personally just in a season where I'm just doing a weekly check-in with myself, like are you showing up? Like are you experiencing it? Are you? And I think the presence, it does go back to presence, but for me that's how I'm defining it for myself, and then finding ways like how am I not just present, but I'm using the word like taking ground. Like how am I taking ground as a father? And that doesn't mean presence for me can become pretty passive. Okay, I turned my phone off, so I'm here. But how am I taking ground? Like, okay, well, how do I take responsibility for something with my children right now? And there's, so like this month we've been taking ground with like our dinner etiquette. Like, hey, we're going to sit in our chairs until everyone's finished. We're going to make sure we thank mom for her or dad for their contribution for this. We're going to like take ground in like parenting you. And I'm not just putting that on Jess, or I'm not just putting that on like, that's tomorrow's work. Like we're doing that work daily. So the presence and the taking ground, those are like the two things where I feel like, okay, no, I'm all in right now. And it feels pretty good.
That's good, Kyle.
So,
yeah, that's great. This is cool that I have a recorded answer that I can go back to for my main questions.
There you go.
Yeah, if nobody else has watched, I'll rewatch multiple times. So that's great.
One listener.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so second one. Is there anything you would say you were most surprised by or unprepared for, even if it's small and practical or if it's bigger in scale? Thinking even like first year.
Or unprepared for?
Yeah, just like I just didn't expect this. Nobody told me about this.
The peace stream.
Excuse me?
You heard me, the pee stream.
The pee stream.
If you have a boy, anytime you like...
the pee stream.
The pee stream.
Okay.
As soon as you like
unstrap...
No, the pee.
Gotcha.
The urine stream, the river, the flow, the fountain.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Water.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. It's well illustrated now.
Can I say this? You can cut this out for now. You're having a boy, right?
Yes.
Is that all right? I can say this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we have 5 boys. You know
Yes.
this, but I'm telling you, nothing prepares you for when you're changing a boy's diaper.
Right.
Because even if it's like wet and you're like, okay, you can't have any more urine inside of you.
Yeah.
The moment you pull that diaper off, it's just a trigger.
It's just have
and he
ready
just
to,
starts
cover it or
peeing.
whatever,
And
right?
there's
It's
and all the diaper does is it just deflects it. You can't I don't
can't
know,
stop it.
even after 5, it's the thing that I just wasn't prepared for and I didn't know what to do with it. Because it's just
Did you discover any best practices, or you just deal with it?
I think you have to go in dressed well. Yeah, you got to have a spare clothes for not just the child but for you. You can never have too many wet wipes everywhere. And I just be ready. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time he hit me in the head, and one of my boys, it's just everywhere.
So you need
because you don't have boys, you don't know what this is like.
You should have dry wipes.
Yes, but it's just because also you just can't prepare for it.
Okay.
Because it can go in any direction.
I need to ask a few more dads to be is this a Shane
It
problem?
very well could be a Shane problem.
Or
yeah. No, Jeremy over there, our production guy's yep.
It is a Shane problem?
No, it's not a Shane
adjust?
problem.
Okay.
And I don't know how you can prepare for it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would have forgotten because I'm just about to change the diaper and you just get in this mode.
Yeah, you can't go in intentional every time.
No,
ready
and you
to,
just turn off your brain and you change and you're just oh my gosh, there's
Yeah.
pee everywhere.
Yeah.
So good luck. Sorry, Kyle. I'm sure you've got something far more serious and helpful than I do.
Yeah, well, yeah, I do, definitely. I'm just thinking, you should just get used to the smell of pee in your house. Raising boys, I feel like that's just part of the territory.
This is true. Poor Emily,
but,
poor Emily.
Yeah, bless her. No, I think, I think I realized for the second one, so it's not as relevant right now for you. For the second, I'm thinking 2 things. One was for the second one was more challenging because I wasn't prepared for a second human who's completely different than the first one. So I only had one experience. Now I'm having a second one, and they're not the same. And that was hard to. Yeah, I don't know why I thought dude, you're crazy for thinking that
some amount of peace. I've been through this. I can. Yeah.
And then as well as I wasn't prepared for. There's a couple things here. I wasn't prepared for the work, and the work wasn't for the kid. I think out of the gate, there was so much more work for Jess than I had anticipated. Yeah. Just showing up for her, emotionally, physically, and that in some ways delayed my bonding with our kids, because, and I would look well, you're the one that gets to do all the fun stuff. I don't get to feed her. It was a year before I got to feed her, it's it was challenging. And so without those moments, I wasn't prepared for working through the emotions of this is work. This is hard. Yeah. Because I don't feel as connected, or I feel like I'm getting stiff-armed a little bit, and that's just the season, that some of those seasons are super short and some of them last, a little bit longer. But that was something that I had to catch up on pretty quick. It was okay, this is it. And show up. This is part of the territory. This is where you weren't prepared. So it's time to pivot a little bit and be okay with that. Yeah. So, I think a big one was just caring for Jess, a good. I hope she doesn't listen to this. So,
oh, this is good.
In the middle of the night, she was feeding early on with Maggie, our first child, and she's in bed. I'm sitting in the rocker waiting for a handoff to help with a diaper change or something here a little bit, and she just screams. And I guess Maggie heard her as she's trying to nurse, bit her or whatever, and she's ow, she's in sheer pain, and I just started laughing. It was it was funny in the moment. She's terrified, and I just middle of the night, I'm sleep deprived, and I just think it's funny, and I laugh, and she got so mad at me, and wasn't prepared for like, okay, like things that might be funny tomorrow or not. I can't. I have to like.
Not right now.
I got to filter a little bit better. I gotta. So she still gives me a hard time about that.
Yeah.
I can't laugh with her about it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Man, that I was not prepared for, but became accustomed to quickly. You know, you learn.
That's good, Kyle.
Yeah.
I think one more, just real quick one. There is not a feeling of more helplessness than the first time you experience your own child being sick for the very first time. And you're either they're dealing with congestion or they have a high fever, and you're watching them suffer, knowing that there is nothing you can do to tell this child it's going to be okay. Like it is one of the hardest things for a new parent to experience, because I can remember those moments. And just to tell you this, but knowing that you're still going to experience this overwhelming feeling of hopelessness and helplessness is like, it's going to be okay. They are going to get sick, and it's going to be hopeless some nights. It's like, what do we do for this child that is having the hardest time, whether it's breathing or just crying? And it's like, the one thing I would tell you is, don't be surprised when you feel hopeless and helpless when your child is sick for the very first time, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's great. Those are all good.
Yeah. My only other thing, and it kind of leads into the question I was going to ask you about on my side, is I found that I was not prepared for, and I was kind of sharing this with Shane. Like, I wasn't prepared for, I call it like the change. Like, you go through a change when you go from like single or married, no kids, to now becoming a father. Like that changes you as a person. And I remember a coworker of mine and friend of mine sent me a text, like, as we were on our way to the hospital that day. It was like, hey, it was long. But what I remember in this text was like, today marks the day when your purpose as a man changes. Like, your purpose now is forever different. Your relationship with your wife changes. Your relationship with God will change in a new way, like give you more perspective there. Your relationship with, and then obviously like you're creating a new relationship with a new human, and like your responsibility of thinking about your finances and your career and your rhythms of life and your hobbies and your time. Like it's all changed. It will all change in a moment, and it just takes us so long to like catch up with that. And that's a process, and that's why we have this whole podcast is about like catching up with that, the reality that like fatherhood is such a significant piece of our identity and who we are and our commitment to our families, that we should be changing, growing in that. But that hit me pretty hard, like month one, as paternity leave was like wrapping up, and I'm like, I gotta get my stuff together. Like, this is a whole new thing. Like, and I remember apologizing to Jess one day, like, I'm sorry, I don't know if I've been taking life seriously enough. 9 years of marriage, and like, have I been serious enough? Like, and she's like, what are you talking about? Like, of course we've been serious. And I'm like, yeah, no, but like, you can take, like, you're not helpless. Like, we're partners in this. We share responsibility in so much of our lives, and this human doesn't. And like, that just changed the way that I thought about everything. Faith, my profession, our marriage, all of it. Just like ups the ante a lot. So I don't know if you can prepare for that, but it's a cool thing to experience.
Yeah. But it's normalizing when it starts to happen, or, you know, when you start to experience the fear of the sick child. You know, it's not like I was now ready for this moment, so it's not scary. I just know I'm not alone and crazy, you know, and that in itself is helpful. You know.
And I think no matter where, like, those moments of helplessness, never feel like you're alone. Every dad knows how hard it is. Yeah. And don't be afraid to pick up the phone, even if you just need another dad to walk you off, you know, back from the ledge, not off the ledge, walk you back.
Right.
Because every dad has been through those moments.
Yeah. 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 So I feel like this is in a similar vein. But if you could go back to year one, if you want to call it year two or whatever, but if back to early days, is there anything you would do differently?
I feel like I've gone first every time. I want to give you.
Well, if you can borrow from a friend or something, that's okay too. Do you ever talk to dads that share anything?
What would I do differently?
But I mean, I wish I would have journaled more. And I don't mean like sat and reflected. Like, honestly, just those special moments that I thought at the time, I'll never forget this. But our brains, at least my brain, only has a certain amount of room for all of those memories. And there are moments that I now don't remember very well. And I don't just mean journal. Like I would journal, if there are special moments, no matter how small or big they are, just write a little bit about this is what happened. This is what I felt. Try to picture it, visualize it, and capture those moments because you won't want to forget those. And if I could go back to year one, I would spend a little bit of time at the end of my day or early in the morning just reflecting on what happened in the last 24 hours and just capturing some of those little moments with my pen. And I wish I would have done that better.
That's cool.
I don't have anything better than that. I just would say, I don't know if I would change this. I think the thing I wouldn't change was we had a rhythm in our home those first couple of months, and Jess would have harder nights. And then in the morning, like 5 or 6 a.m., she would hand off this fed, sleepy little helpless infant to me. And so like from 6 a.m. to like 9 a.m. was like, I got to lay in bed and just hold this little, I let her sleep on me. It was like and I'm watching, I'm reading a book or I'm listening to a show or I'm watching something. And it was just like, 6 weeks of like soaking that up. Like it was just like really, really, really special for me. And I wouldn't change that for the world. With Maggie, I didn't get to have that with Lucy. But like Maggie, that was like, it was in those moments that I processed through, like I'm a father now and had that space to think. But I love the journaling idea. I didn't do a very good job at that.
And don't and I think what I wish I would have done too, to just talk more a little bit more of the journaling thing. I think we get like we have these ideas of big aspirations and good intentions. Like as a new father, you might think, oh, I like that journaling idea. I'm going to do that every single day. And then life happens and you go a whole week and you're like, oh shoot, I just missed the last 7 days. I haven't journaled anything. I'm terrible. I can't even do this. And then I would get off of rhythm and be like, I can't do this. I'm stupid.
You just give up.
Yeah, and it's like, it's okay. Like every day is new. God's mercies are new every morning. And just like, okay, today's a new day. I'm going to write a little thing. And I got so caught up on, I missed 3 days of memories. This is stupid. I can't do this. No, just get back to it the next day. Capture the memories that you can when you can. So.
It's awesome.
This last one's a little simpler. I think just I believe pretty deeply it's community and experience, and like the extra info is only like so helpful. But still, I know you guys are readers, and I'm just curious, like, have there been any, it doesn't have to be for a newborn, just in your journey of fatherhood, like must reads about being a man or fatherhood that you're like, these are awesome?
Do you got anything?
No. What are you going to say?
What?
What are you going to say?
No, I'm waiting for you to say something.
I don't have it.
I had a smart ass remark, like the Bible, but I was like, I can't say that. Just cut that right out. No. There's so many good books. But the thing that, like, when I look back, my wife and I, we've had like almost 2 groups of children. We had our 4 older boys that we had like back to back to back to back, and then we had Kaylee and Lander. And I was really broken when I was raising my first 4 children. And I don't think there was like a help book on fatherhood that would have helped me deal with my brokenness. But what that fatherhood moment did for me was, in the moments of difficulty, my brokenness would come out, right? Like I would lose my temper. I would be super impatient. And it wasn't because of my child. My child was just revealing things in me that weren't very healthy. And so I would recommend reading books that would help, or seeking counseling that would help unpack what is it inside of me that has a tendency to come out when things aren't going well. So like I started to unpack some of my own father wounds that was creating some unhealth in the way that I parented my kids. And any sort of like intentional fatherhood book, or here are the 10 things that every dad needs to do, those wouldn't have helped me through that. And I'm careful to say, hey, this is the book that really helped me, because it may not help somebody else, because their brokenness might look very different than my brokenness. But one book that really helped me was this book called The Cure And it has nothing to do with fatherhood.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with just my own identity. And I kept trying to like paint a picture of who I wanted to be and who I wanted to look like to others. And this book helped me understand how my Heavenly Father saw me, and it freed me to like deal with the things in my past. And honestly, I think that helped me be a better father than any parent help book. So read whatever's going to help you unpack the messes that come out of us that aren't because of our kids, but they just have a great way of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that mess gets on them.
Oh, 100%. And I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah. No, I was laughing. I wasn't laughing, but I was like struggling with this question because I didn't read any parenting books, like zero.
Yeah.
Until recent. And then really, I would say in a similar vein, I've been reading more about just me lately, of who am I as a son, as a father, husband, these different roles that we get to play. A couple things that stick out. One we're rereading right now with our small group is Becoming a King. And a couple things that stick out in that whole storyline is like, I love the piece in that book where he talks about like, his daughter one day is like, hey, Dad, let me see your pocket knife. And the confidence that she had that he always has a knife. Not that like you're supposed to do anything crazy with this thing, but that like she had all the confidence in the world her dad could fix whatever problems that she experienced that she needed help with. Like that was like such a cool, tangible thing of like, how do you create confidence with your kids? Like you're there and like you can help and then like Dad can fix it. And like my kids today, they're like, fix this, Dad. And like, I can't, that thing's not fixable. Yeah. We can fix a lot, but like that's kind of a fun thing. Cool. But that meant a lot to me. The whole premise in that book around like, who are the men you're running with in life? You're going to war with. Like the reality is like this life, we go to war every day, and you need men to do that alongside you to sign treaties with, because like, who are the men that are going to help carry your casket? Who are going to help raise these children with you? That to me was a point of like revolution in my parenting in my life. Another thing that was a turning point that's not spiritual, but it was like just the way I looked at was a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it just changed the way that I thought about my job and career and how I'm preparing. And it still influences decision-making that I'm going through as a father. And then a final one that I'm in right now, and I'm not finished with it, but it's changing the way I think about family and the family that we're building together. It's just called Family Revision by a guy named Jeremy Pryor. And there's he's an interesting dude. I talk a lot about that with Edelyn over here, but like, just chewing on like, what's my plan? What's the story we're creating as a family? What's our, the identity of our family? And is it Kyle first? And then like the identity of our individuals that make up our family. It's a pretty unique and challenging book for where we're at in our season of life. So a couple of recs.
That's cool.
Yeah, I would say, I think when we run into problems as parents, and like we're like, okay, what do I need to digest to help me figure this out? This is where I would encourage any new father to like invite men in to ask and be vulnerable with them, saying, hey, I've noticed that when this happens, I just don't know what to do, and invite other men in to speak into that. And they'll probably give you some books to read.
Yeah.
But they'll also encourage you along the way, which a book can't necessarily do.
Yeah. It's good.
Well, now I'm ready. I've graduated.
Nope, you're still not ready.
No, everything else. Thanks, guys.
I like draw a picture, like a certificate, like an Upshot certificate. Yeah. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
You check the boxes.
Nope.
You got some homework to do. You'll be fine.
Certified.
You'll pass the test.
He's definitely not ready.
Well, Shane, do you have any questions for Jordan?
Well, as
that we haven't hit on yet.
I mean, I what tips do you have? I think we wanted to ask you, like, if there are new dads, you're just a couple days away. Some dads are a little bit behind you. Some dads are thinking about becoming a father. Just what's one or two tips you might have for a dad that's a few steps behind you?
Yeah, I think. So I think I might share one that's from my current season, and then I talked to you ahead of time around. I think like maybe that I think that I have that could be helpful is actually really not experience from my current season, but getting to serve in and sit in the spot in student ministry for 10 years. We have a moderate to large student ministry here. We've had thousands of students come through. And so about 3 years ago, Buck is the lead pastor at North Point, and he asked me to speak in a parenting series, which I was like, absolutely not. Like, that's crazy. But he kept pushing on it to say, like, I get to be in a unique space of getting to see what kids are like when their parents aren't around, and that parents will probably lean into what the observations are of that. So I prefaced a lot, like, in it about, hey, this feels a little bit like giving advice on brain surgery because I read a book on brain surgery. Like, that it feels a little silly still. And there are some things where I don't think anything on this list will change with time. I might deliver it with more like grace or empathy or understanding for how challenging it is to execute on these. But I think these are some more timeless things. And so, but they're, kind of personal experience observations. So I'll share that list as like a 1, and then I'll share my 1 from the season if that works. But so from that message, the first one I put was the quality of your relationship determines the weight of your influence. And that came from an observation to say, I noticed when I would meet with a kid who was struggling with something, going through something, a breakup or whatever, my go-to question was always like, have you talked to your parents about this? And if you haven't, how do you think they would respond? And there was a pretty stark contrast with, yes, I already have. They were like the first ones I've gone to, and now I'm just like, I'm getting extra advice or another opinion. And the ones that either would say like, no, I haven't, or like, please don't, like, please don't tell my parents. And so, and I think a lot of that is formed, over time, not overnight. And so there were some qualifiers in the message I'd put. I think like truth without relationship leads to rejection. So you can say all the things that are true to your kids, but no relationship, they're just going to throw it out. You're like, why is it falling on deaf ears? Rules without relationship lead to rebellion. They're going to push them and try to break them. And discipline without relationship leads to angerness, bitterness, and resentment on their part. And so that was the one for me. Like, it's just kids spell love, Time, like it's a classic. And it's so easy for me to say on the side of things without all the complexities and managing career and all that, which I'm about to be in. But that was one that really stood out. The second was, I hope that every parent believes how important it is to seek to understand rather than assuming you understand. I think a lot of us were like, we were kids once, teenagers once, and we get their world and we simplify their problems. And so I like to share, like, their reality is their reality. It's all they know. And it might seem like a 2 on your scale, but it seems like a 10 to them. And they haven't experienced this before. And not only are we seeing ours through a lens of 20 or 30 years ago, and we are different people now, but it was different times and technology and social media. And so to really just try to understand the kid's pain point or question or frustration or hurt, they want to feel seen and heard just like we do. And to me, that felt like very different. The parents that like, I can never talk to them. They just don't understand. They just don't get it. They just shut me down. Felt like a big one. The third on the list of 5 was loving one another matters. And so I'm specifically talking about the parents there, the partners. And I think Jeremy did a really great job, if you heard last month's, of talking about this dynamic, because I think this includes scenarios where a parent isn't involved, or if it's divorced or anything. I think even the way you talk about the other parent has a big impact. And certainly if you are married, to say like, that's the priority, that's the primary relationship, and kids feel that and experience that in terms of safety. And that comes from a kid with divorced parents, like I got to experience those sides of that too. And so I think those are the first 3. The fourth was the importance of communicating that your love is not predicated on their performance. We just live in a world that measures them in every way now. You get into high school and you get a literal number for your class rank with your GPA, and if you're first or second or third chair, where you are in the lineup, how many followers you have. I mean, it's just everywhere. And so for them to know that your love for them is not based on how they're doing in school or their extracurricular or whatever it may be. And then the 5th is they need you just as much when they get older as they did when they were little. And that may not mean in terms of time. It may not be the same number of hours, but I think You know, you see it even in like open houses in schools, like from elementary that drops in middle, it drops heavily in high school, and there's this like feeling like I've kind of done what I can do. They're on their own now, and I just think that's not been in my experience at all. I shared in the message there was a story of an 18-year-old guy, a couple weeks away from graduation, came up here on a Wednesday night and was like shaking like uncontrollably, bawling his eyes out, like very out of character for this kid. And so I thought there was a loss in the family. I thought there was like I didn't know what I was about to hear, but like sat him down, got him to calm down, and like choked out, like he could barely even like say the words. But he said, when I was leaving tonight, my dad just said, "I love you," for the first time in my life. And he's an adult, like in our society, you know, and the weight of his dad's words, like in that moment, I think both the pain of what he hasn't heard and experienced and the weight of what he just did here. And so I just think like that's an encouragement to stay engaged as they age, and that I think the influence in the words change, and it's obviously to be more than just you, but it's not like they don't need you anymore. So
it's good.
Those were the ones, and there was a bonus. I don't know why I didn't just make it a 6, but it's like the importance of being what you want them to be. That was another one. I meet with parents a lot that help me with my kid's phone, and it's like, well, their relationship with their phone is not healthy either. And it's like, you know, I'm going to drop them off at church, and that'll fix their relationship with Jesus. And it's like, well, your relationship with Jesus, if it's not a priority, it won't be for them either. And it's not in a shaming way. I just, it's how the math works, you know, is to be and become is going to be the greatest. And so those are, you know, things that fall in an easier said than done list for me on this side of things, but those were the observations that I shared, and that's like kind of from the student ministry space.
It's really good, Jordan.
It's also,
yeah. I think you're more qualified to be a parent than I am.
Well, now I get to go execute the game plan. So we'll see what happens here. Yeah. The season of life story, the season of life one is I just want to like normalize like not knowing what to do, you know.
Sure.
I think it's actually really interesting coming from a student ministry background. I have this excitement for him to like be a teenager and talk about big life convos with them. I am so freaking clueless on like the baby years, the infant years. Like I have no, like I'm not an uncle yet. Like there's just, I'm not around it at all. And so, and there's can be this weird insecurity, like somehow that should be instinctual, or you should just know, or we were, you know, I was talking with some friends the other day, and they were being kind of critical, as we do the comparison thing you were talking about of like a, you know, young family's parenting style about their 2-year-olds. And I was like, I just intervened and asked, like, where should they go to learn how to parent a 2-year-old? Like they've never done that. Disciplining a 2-year-old's hard. Like where, you know, is that something people just supposed to know to do? And so just, for me, I think there's a lot of freedom in being like, I recognize that guy in the foyer was right. Like I am not prepared. And so that's even why about a year ago, we got in a community group with, you know, a bunch of parents ahead of us. And we're like, we just want to be around it and hear their stories. And I know I'm going to need you guys and my friends that are ahead of me. And I'm going to be asking a ton of questions. And is this normal? And how do I, you know, and that feels like it holds true in every season. Like even if you've got elementary age kids or middle school age kids, you haven't had high school age kids yet, you haven't been an empty nester yet, whatever the next season is, I feel like that can continue the whole time. And the more you can just feel the freedom to be like, I don't know, I need people, I need help.
It's good, Jordan. I really like it.
That's awesome. Cool. We're going to kind of wrap this up.
You got to share your one takeaway from today's episode.
Yep. So what's the takeaway? My takeaway is, it's just fresh. I love the normalizing. I don't know. That's true for every season. Like even having all the lists and the stuff and the experiences, like that's a cool thing to not cool, but it's a very helpful thing to remind myself. Is like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm still sitting here processing that last story because I'm thinking through like my only experience with parenting 4-year-olds. If I haven't surrounded myself with somebody who's got a 4-year-old, then it's like, what do I remember of my parents? And we all have some kind of lens around that. Either that was like, that's gospel truth and like, it's got to be that way, or it's complete rejection because I have baggage around that and it needs to change and be 180 or whatever else. And so, we act like we have no idea. We haven't done it. There's not a manual in doing this stuff, becoming parents, but we do have the example that our parents gave us. And sometimes that's great and sometimes that's not. And how to filter all it, we have to have the context of people to talk about this stuff and learn with and to challenge us and to give us other examples of how it can happen. So that's my big takeaway, is like just valuing other perspectives and the relationships that we get to share along the way as we father our children. It's pretty cool.
It's good. And I think my takeaway, we're just learning so much from this guy who isn't even a dad yet.
I know.
This is amazing.
Hey,
who knew we could do this?
Can you come back next month?
I was thinking like, let's revisit the list like 6 months from now.
We'll check in, John. Don't you worry. We're going to check in.
All right. Remove the list, just stay alive. That's
we'll score you.
And keep them alive.
That's right. We'll score you, man.
How did you say it? Be what you want your children to be?
The importance of being what you want them to be.
Yeah, and I think, you're convicting me, because we do have this battle with parenting teenagers, the amount of time they spend in front of technology. And we're constantly challenging our children to limit or minimize, reduce the amount of time they're spending in front of their screens. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, how much time do I spend in front of my screen, in front of my children? Be what I want my children to be. So thank you for challenging and convicting me, Jordan. That is my one takeaway from today. Good. What about you, Jordan?
Yeah, I think my questions, it feels like those are 4 takeaways, so that's tough. But the combo of you normalizing the fears, the hopelessness, the overwhelm that's coming, feels really cool. Whatever thing I'm scared of, whatever moment I feel like totally inadequate, I'm in none of those will I be the first person or father to have ever felt that. And I think with yours, the shifting of like, this is a new, like the way you see every relationship, but the way even you phrase talking about taking care of Jess, like that's an interesting one for me to think about too right now, is like, I just said number 3 is loving one another matters, but that starts like day 0, you know, that's a really cool perspective that my role, especially this early on, might lean a little more heavily into caring for her as she cares for a baby and not, that's pretty cool.
Good. It's awesome. Yeah. Well, this is great. As we wrap up, I want to remind or kind of give a little bit of insight to our listeners here. We talked several times in this conversation, each of us, about like the role of other people that can help us along the way. And because we believe in that so much, I'm excited. We've been doing a lot of work on this, on the Upshot over the last year. We're coming up on a year anniversary here. I think this is 10 episodes in. We missed a couple of months, but almost a year in, we've had tremendous feedback from other guys in the community, whether it's texting or stopping us or calling, sending an email saying like, hey, here's something I'm processing about the show or the latest episode, or something I'm challenged in or I'm grateful for. And it's really moved us to consider like, what are we doing here with this thing called the Upshot? And right now it's branded as a podcast for dads who try. And I think I'm excited to kind of communicate to everyone that we are going to move that a little bit further. We're going to change the goalposts a little bit from a podcast for dads to a community for dads who want to get it right. And we're still working on what is that going to look like and the timeline for how we're going to continue to evolve this. But I'm excited to kind of paint a picture, cast a vision around that, because we need help. And podcasts are good and they're a great starting place, but I would love to give guys another a resource or more vehicles or more community of men to help them take a next step in articulating their upshot and moving towards that guy that they want, that father that they want to become, and or just bouncing off ideas on like how to even approach the conversation. We've had conversations with guys with this whole idea of like defining an upshot or thinking about it is so intimidating that they're just surviving, that they want to love their families and their kids, but they, it's challenging. The language is different. They weren't raised this way talking about stuff. And so I'm pumped, man, to like create opportunities for guys and open doors for guys to rub shoulders and work on this together and introduce them to community. So more information to come on all of that. And if you're listening, I want to make a special invitation. If you're a regular listener or first time, we would love for you to text us at the number 97000, 97,000. Text the word Upshot. And what that will do is you'll subscribe to an SMS list, a texting list, where we can now understand who all is listening or get a picture of like who is listening, and then also communicate with you from our side a little bit more about the opportunities that we're working on when we're having events or roll out more resources, new episodes, all that fun stuff. So if you're listening, shoot us a text. We'd love to hear from you, get you on that list. And then as we wrap up again, we also have an email list. We're not an email list, but we would love for you to, if you have an idea, I'm like stuttering over
You're
my words
almost
here.
done. You can get through this, Kyle.
It's been a long episode. I'm so grateful to have Jordan here. If you have an idea, a tip, or a recommendation you want to pass along to Jordan, shoot us an email at upshot@mpaustin.com, and we will make sure that he gets that next week as he's in the hospital or soon after when they return home, because he needs all the help he can get.
Amen. Amen.
Cool. Hey, guys, it's been good.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan.
Yeah,
thanks for your time.
Bye. Hey, dads, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Kyle and I are honored to have you, and we hope you took something away from the episode. Wherever you are, we appreciate your support. So go ahead, hit that like button, the subscribe button, or whatever button is in front of you with the technology you're using. And if you wouldn't mind to let us know that you're actually tuning into this podcast, we would love it if you would text the word Upshot to 97000. That won't just let us know that you're listening, but it's also a way that you can subscribe to any updates or resources that we will have coming down the pipeline in the future. Again, guys, thanks for tuning in. We hope you have a wonderful week, and we can't wait to see you next time.